Good evening, and welcome to Snooze Podcast. Have you been calling yourself lazy lately, even when your body feels heavy and your mind won't settle? Maybe it's not a lack of will. Maybe it's the quiet weight of everything you've been holding. So lie back, let the pressure slip off your shoulders, and let's gently explore the truth behind what you're really carrying. You are not lazy. You are exhausted from living in a world that expects you to function without rest. Nahira Wahid. You wake up and the weight is already there. Not a weight you can see, not something dramatic, just heavy. Your eyes feel tired even though you slept. Your body aches even though nothing's wrong. And somewhere in the background of your thoughts is that whisper again. You should be doing more. You sit up in bed, phone in hand, scrolling through other people's mornings, green smoothies, gym selfies, neatly made beds, digital planners with color-coded goals. And there you are, still in your pajamas, overwhelmed by the thought of making coffee. So the voice grows louder. You're lazy. You're falling behind. Why can't you just get it together? But what if I told you you're not lazy at all? What if the thing dragging at your limbs isn't a lack of ambition, but an overload of silent, unseen weight? Because exhaustion doesn't always look like running marathons or working triple shifts. Sometimes it looks like holding your breath through grief that no one else sees. Sometimes it looks like carrying the emotional labor of being everyone's safe place while silently drowning in your own chaos. Sometimes it looks like anxiety, dressing up as procrastination or depression, disguised as a perfectly normal to-do list you can't bring yourself to touch. And sometimes it looks like nothing at all. Just you, sitting there, not knowing why you're so tired. But I know why. And maybe deep down you do too. Because when you trace it back through the quiet disappointments, the never-ending expectations, the decades of internalized not enough, you begin to see it. You are not unmotivated. You are not broken. You are carrying too much. You carry the weight of unfinished healing, of hypervigilance that never turns off, of questions you don't have answers to, and wounds you've never had the time or permission to tend. You carry memories you pushed down for years because survival required it. You carry roles you didn't choose, the strong one, the fixer, the invisible glue. You carry shame about things that were never your fault. You carry loneliness in a world that praises busyness over belonging. You carry the ache of not being seen, not as you truly are, but as what others need you to be. And when you carry that much, of course, rest feels like failure. Of course, the smallest task can feel like climbing a mountain. Of course, you're tired. You're allowed to be tired. Not just in your muscles, but in your soul. You don't need to earn your exhaustion with grand accomplishments. You don't need to justify it with visible scars. The fact that you're here, still breathing, still trying, still holding space for your own healing, that is enough. And maybe you've never been told that before. Maybe you've only heard the voice of productivity culture, the one that tells you that worth is measured in output and rest is something to feel guilty about. But that voice is lying. You are not a machine. You are not a checklist. You're not meant to wake up and function like a perfect algorithm. You are a living, breathing person with a heart and a history and a nervous system that remembers every hurt you tried to forget. And if today all you can do is rest, that is a holy thing, not a flaw, not a weakness, a holy thing, because rest is rebellion in a world that profits off your burnout. Stillness is sacred when everything around you screams for speed. Slowing down is not laziness, it is presence. It is the way you begin to return to yourself after years of being pulled in 1,000 directions. So maybe today isn't about fixing everything. Maybe it's about listening. Maybe it's about asking, what am I really carrying? And when you ask that question, be gentle, because the answers might come in the form of grief you forgot you were holding. In the form of old stories that still sit beneath your skin. I have to be perfect to be loved. If I rest, I'm worthless. If I say no, they'll leave. Let those stories come. Don't push them away. Let them rise like steam, like fog lifting from a glass lake at dawn. Let yourself see the full weight of what you've carried, not to judge it, but to honor it. Because every time you called yourself lazy, what you really needed was love. Not another planner, not another motivational quote, just love. The kind that says, I see how heavy this has been for you. The kind that says, you're still good even when you're not producing. The kind that lets you exist without earning it. And here's something else that's true. You don't have to explain your tiredness to anyone. You don't need permission to rest. You are allowed to care for yourself without turning it into a performance. You are allowed to want more than survival. You are allowed to just be without apologizing for it. And if your inner critic is loud right now, if it's telling you that this softness is indulgent or naive or unrealistic, just remember that voice was built to keep you safe in unsafe places, but you're not there anymore. You are allowed to choose a different way now, a slower way, a gentler way, a way that believes healing doesn't have to look impressive to be real. So if you've been feeling stuck, if you've been telling yourself that you're lazy, unmotivated, broken, stop. Take one deep, forgiving breath. You are not broken. You are tired, and you're allowed to be. You didn't ask for this weight. You didn't sit down one day and choose to feel guilt for resting. You didn't volunteer to carry shame every time you needed a break. You didn't consciously decide that your value would be measured by your output. But somewhere along the way, it seeped in. Maybe it started with gold stars on report cards. Maybe it started when your worth was tied to being easy or good or impressive. Maybe it started when your parents were too busy surviving to notice how tired you were trying to earn their approval. So you learned that slowing down was dangerous, that being still meant falling behind, that if you didn't try harder, smile brighter, carry more, complain, less you'd be left behind or looked at differently. And the irony, you probably became the most dependable one, the high achiever, the strong friend, the one who always gets back up, the one who remembers birthdays, who stays late at work, who holds everyone else together. But who holds you? Where is the space for you to crumble? Gently. Where is the room for your softness, your messiness, your completely unproductive sadness? Because underneath the mask of I've got, this is a person quietly whispering, I'm exhausted, but I don't know how to stop. And it's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you're undisciplined or scattered or lazy. It's because rest was never modeled as love. It was modeled as collapse, as something you earn after you break, as something allowed only when you've checked every box and proven you're not wasting time. And so now, when your body gently asks for pause, your mind panics. When your soul whispers, can we just be for a while? That inner voice rises up. Be what? Be lazy, be useless, fall behind. But what if you're not behind? What if you are exactly where you're meant to be? Because this is the season of healing, not hustling. Because this is the part of your life where you unlearn the idea that love must be earned and start learning how to receive it without proving anything. And that starts with you. You showing up for yourself on the days when you don't check anything off the list. You being kind to yourself when your brain feels like molasses and everything is hard for no clear reason. You saying, it's okay that I need a slower pace today. Because maybe you're not wired for the pace that's been demanded of you. Maybe you're not lazy, just deeply sensitive in a world that rewards emotional numbness. Maybe you're not falling short, just trying to survive a system that was never built for rest. And what a radical act it is. To say I will not burn myself to keep up with a world that cannot sit still. What a powerful thing it is to declare I will not measure my value by how much I can endure. It takes courage to rest. It takes bravery to let yourself be loved even when you haven't earned it. To make a meal and eat it slowly, not quickly at your desk. To take a walk, not to count steps, but just to be under the trees. To lay down and close your eyes in the middle of the day because your body said, please. And no, not everyone will understand that. Because there are people who can't sit still with their own pain. People who keep busy as a form of escape. People who learn to cope through overfunctioning, overscheduling, overdoing. But just because they can't see your value in stillness doesn't mean it isn't there. You are not broken for needing slowness. You are not wrong for needing more time. You are not less than because your energy doesn't work like everyone else's. You are allowed to move at the speed of your own healing. And yes, some days that speed is glacial. Some days it looks like starting a task, then needing to lie down. Some days it looks like just brushing your teeth and calling it a victory. But healing is not linear. Growth is not a race. And your worth is not waiting at the finish line. It's here, now, in the very breath you are taking, in the softness you allow, in the kindness you offer to yourself when the world would rather you hustle harder and say nothing. You have nothing to prove. Let me say that again, gently. You have nothing to prove. You don't need to justify your tiredness with trauma. You don't need to tell a story about how hard your week was in order to deserve a quiet afternoon. You don't need to qualify your need for rest. You simply need it, and that is enough, because you are enough. You've done enough. You've been holding so much for so long, and even when you dropped the ball, even when you broke down, even when you failed by someone else's definition, you kept going. You stayed. You tried again. You found your way here. And here is sacred. Here is brave. Here is the place where you choose to pause, not because you've given up, but because you're learning to give in to softness, to care, to the truth that your worth was never a transaction. So take another breath. Let it be deeper than the last. Let it loosen something in your chest. You are not lazy. You are allowed to stop performing. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to just be. Somewhere in the quiet corners of your memory, there's a child who moved slowly, not because they were lazy, but because they noticed everything. They noticed the way light filtered through leaves, how dust floated in sunbeams, how people's moods changed even when no one said a word. They felt things deeply, so deeply it sometimes confused the adults around them. Maybe that child asked too many questions, or cried over things others called small, or stayed quiet in rooms that felt too loud. And little by little, the world taught them something. Being sensitive makes life harder. Feeling too much means being too much. And if you want to be safe, better keep it all inside. So that child adapted. They became helpful, agreeable, efficient. They learned to anticipate needs before anyone spoke them. They learned that if they made themselves small enough, useful enough, perfect enough, they could avoid disappointment. But the cost? They started to believe their value lived in what they could do, not in who they were. And now, even as an adult, that belief lingers like background noise. Do more, be more, stay ahead, don't fall apart. Because if you fall apart, what happens to everything you're holding? But here's the truth. No one told that child you were never supposed to carry all of it. Not the tension in your parents' voices, not the silent responsibility for everyone else's peace, not the pressure to be good all the time, even when you were hurting. You were meant to be held, to be comforted, to be reminded that your tears weren't a problem, your needs weren't burdens, your dreams weren't embarrassing. And maybe no one said those words back then. Maybe they still haven't, but you can say them now. You can hold space for that child. You can say, I see you. I'm sorry you had to grow up so fast. I'm sorry no one saw how heavy it all was. Because that younger version of you, they're still here. Still flinching every time you call yourself lazy. Still waiting for permission to rest. Still hoping you'll stop measuring your worth by how productive you've been. You don't owe anyone your burnout. You don't need to explain why today was hard. You don't need to pretend you're fine when your soul's clearly begging for quiet. This isn't just about taking a break. It's about breaking the cycle of overworking to feel worthy, the cycle of smiling through pain, the cycle of believing that your softness needs a justification. It doesn't. Your softness is not a problem to fix. It's the doorway to your truest self. And when you let go of the idea that you need to earn your existence, when you finally step out of that loop, you find something gentle waiting on the other side. Peace. Not the kind that looks good on a vision board, but the kind that lives in your body when you're no longer running. Peace that says you are safe now. You are allowed to put it all down. You are allowed to take up space without offering anything in return. And yes, this takes time. Some days you'll fall back into old habits. You'll scroll past reminders to rest and feel a knot of guilt instead. You'll start a task out of obligation, not desire, and halfway through wonder why your chest feels tight. That's okay. Unlearning a lifetime of self-abandonment doesn't happen in a day. But each time you pause, each time you choose presence over productivity, each time you tell yourself it's okay to stop, you build a new path, a softer one where you walk beside yourself, not ahead, one where you stop apologizing for your pace. Because healing isn't efficient. Sometimes healing is sitting on the floor in yesterday's clothes, sipping tea and staring at the wall, doing nothing but being. And that too is sacred, because it means you're no longer at war with yourself. It means your nervous system is slowly learning that stillness doesn't mean danger anymore. It means you're learning how to live without bracing. And when you live without bracing, everything softens. Food tastes better. Colors feel brighter. People feel safer, and your own company begins to feel like home. So let that be your quiet revolution, not to do more, not to prove anything, but to return to yourself, to the part of you that never needed fixing, to the truth that your value has never been up for debate, to the inner knowing that your slowness is not laziness, it's wisdom. Because you know what happens when you carry too much for too long. You forget how light feels. You forget what it's like to move without panic, to rest without guilt, to exist without explaining. But you are remembering now. You are remembering that your body is not a machine. Your emotions are not inconveniences. And your need for rest is not a moral failure. It is sacred. It is necessary. It is yours. So tonight, maybe don't try to fix anything. Just let yourself be held by this truth. You are not lazy. You are carrying too much. And now, it's time to begin putting some of it down. Your nervous system is not broken. It's just been overwhelmed, wired to protect you, to keep you alert, to help you navigate a world that hasn't always felt safe. So if you've ever sat down to rest but couldn't, if you've ever laid in bed and felt your heart race for no reason, if your body still braces even when there's no threat, that's not laziness. That's your nervous system saying, we've been through too much to relax without permission. And it's not your fault. Because when you grow up in survival mode, stillness doesn't feel peaceful. It feels unsafe. Silence becomes suspicious. Rest feels like slacking. And joy sometimes feels like something that'll be taken away if you hold it too long. So you stay on edge. Even when life quiets down, something inside you doesn't. You keep anticipating the next crisis. You keep trying to stay one step ahead of disappointment. But you don't have to live like that anymore. Not every quiet moment is a trap. Not every pause is a prelude to punishment. Not every slow season is wasted. You're allowed to exhale. Not the kind of exhale you perform in a yoga class to get it right, but the soft, unfiltered kind. The kind that says, I'm not in danger anymore. And maybe that's a hard sentence to believe, because part of you still doesn't trust that the other shoe won't drop. Because every time you tried to rest in the past, something happened. Someone needed you. Something fell apart. Someone made you feel selfish for taking a moment. But rest isn't selfish. Rest is a quiet declaration of self-worth. It says, I am human, I am tired, and that is not a sin. It says, I don't have to wait until I'm falling apart to be gentle with myself. It says, my softness is not negotiable anymore. And if that feels unfamiliar, if you still feel the urge to justify your exhaustion, try this. Next time you pause when you sit down with your tea, or stretch your arms, or look out the window for a little too long, say softly to yourself, this is allowed. This quiet moment is allowed. This breath is allowed. This stillness doesn't need an excuse, because guilt is not a requirement for receiving care. You don't have to convince anyone, not even yourself, that you worked hard enough to deserve softness. You already do. And the thing is, the world will always try to speed you up again. Notifications, expectations, deadlines. Even your own brain will whisper, shouldn't you be doing something? But here's what you're doing. You're healing. You're rewiring the parts of you that only know safety and motion. You're telling your nervous system, you don't have to hold your breath anymore. You're creating space inside your own body for peace to live, not just visit. And that's brave. Because this kind of healing, it doesn't get gold stars. It doesn't trend on social media. It doesn't come with applause or productivity reports. But it matters more than anything. Because when you heal your relationship with rest, you heal your relationship with yourself. You stop seeing yourself as a project to improve and start seeing yourself as a person to care for. You stop asking, how can I be more efficient? And start asking, what do I need to feel safe right now? And sometimes the answer is silence. Sometimes it's tears. Sometimes it's laughter that erupts for no reason. Because something in you finally feels light again. Let that be enough. Let small joys count. Let the quiet be sacred. Let this be the moment where you stop editing your needs to make them palatable. Because here's the deepest truth of all. You are not a burden. You are not lazy. You are not falling behind. You are healing. And healing doesn't move in straight lines. Some days, you'll get up with energy and clarity. Other days, brushing your hair will feel like a mountain. Neither of those days defines your worth. You are not only good when you're high functioning. You are not only lovable when you're smiling. You are not only deserving of rest when every box is checked. You are good even in your undoneness. You are lovable when you're quiet. You are worthy when you're just existing. And if no one ever made you feel that before, if everyone around you only praised your effort, your excellence, your ability to push through, let me say it plainly, you do not need to be extraordinary to deserve peace. You do not need to suffer loudly to be seen. You do not need to prove your pain in order for it to matter. You can just rest. You can just be. And yes, that will feel awkward at first. Your brain might resist it. Your body might twitch with the echoes of old urgency. But keep staying. Keep choosing stillness even in seconds. Keep breathing like your life doesn't depend on performance. Because it doesn't. Not anymore. Your life now is about coming home to yourself. And home is not a place you rush through. Home is where you are safe to exhale, to soften, to lay it all down and whisper, this is enough. Because you are enough, even when you pause. Especially when you pause, you are allowed to put it down now, all of it. The stories that tell you to earn your worth, the pressure to be perfect before you rest, the invisible scripts that say, if you're not producing, you're not valuable. They were never yours to begin with. They were handed to you, layer by layer, from generations who didn't know how to rest, from systems that reward burnout and call it success, from families that mistook silence for strength and busyness for love. But you are part of a new story now, a slower one, a gentler one where softness is power, one where healing is not something you squeeze into the margins of your day, but something you live, breathe, and honor. And it won't always feel easy. There will be days when the world tries to pull you back into hustle, into noise, into forgetting. But every time you pause, every time you choose tenderness instead of shame, every time you say, this is enough, and actually believe it, you are rewriting everything. You are saying, I am not lazy, I am not behind, I am not too much or not enough. I am human, I am healing, I am allowed. And that kind of permission, it ripples. It softens others. It opens doors for the people watching you who have also felt like they were drowning under invisible weight. Because you're not alone in this. There are so many people, quiet, exhausted, good-hearted people who have been carrying too much for far too long. And maybe they've never said it aloud. Maybe they've learned how to function through the ache. But inside, they're waiting for something soft to hold on to. Something like this moment. Something like this voice that says, "You're not lazy, love. You're just tired. And you've been tired for a long, long time. And it's okay to rest now. It's okay to be still. It's okay to let someone, even just a voice in the dark, tell you, you've done enough. You are enough. And you are allowed to lay it all down. Let yourself lay it down tonight. Let the weight slide off your shoulders. Let the breath come a little easier. Let your heartbeat soften, not because the world is suddenly perfect, but because you've decided to treat yourself with the kindness you've always deserved. No grand resolutions, no fixing yourself. Just you here in this quiet, choosing to believe that peace is not a prize for the finished version of you. Peace is here now, in your chest, in your breath, in the stillness you create by deciding I no longer need to fight myself. You don't. You are allowed to be gentle with your progress. You are allowed to fall apart and not start over immediately. You're allowed to stay exactly where you are and still be proud of yourself because you made it here. Through every storm, through every voice that told you to keep going when your soul needed rest, through every night you wondered if you were broken. You weren't. You were becoming. And now you're home, not in someone else's version of success, not in a spreadsheet of goals or an inbox of unread expectations, but here in your own body, in your own presence, in your own quiet truth. That rest is not a reward. It is a right. That you don't need to hustle to be worthy. You already are. That being human, messy, feeling inconsistent is not a flaw. It's your most honest form. So tonight, give yourself permission to fall asleep without fixing everything, to exhale without earning it, to love yourself softly without condition. Let the world spin without you for a while. Let the stars keep time. You don't need to hold it all. You never did. You just needed someone to remind you you are not lazy. You are carrying too much, and now you are finally putting it down. Sleep, love. You're safe now. You're safe. You're safe.